Okay, so Chris, I have to say that like I did not realize how crazy those scams get.
You should hear some of the actual stories, but you don't have enough time for tonight.
I think just seeing that entire cycle, it doesn't just end where they take your money and then they get you with the recovery scams. You know, Amber and I work together. We work in compliance. We do this stuff all day. But even then, like seeing the depth of how crazy that can get is like really eye opening for me personally. But so we're here. We're talking about building trust in new technologies, and each of you has, you know, I think you see trust from a different angle, right? So I wanted to see if you each could share what trust actually means in your corner of the industry, and if those definitions work together or if they ever contradict.
Oh, well, it's okay. So from my perspective, at VideoMill, working with clients that are setting up primarily exchanges, trading platforms, and other avenues primarily for retail customers. And it is all about trust. I mean, if you don't have a strong framework in place and then you don't make things easy to understand, intuitive, and compliant, you're going to drive away customers. And I think in the crypto space, we're often tout that we need to educate consumers. If people just do a little bit more about crypto, they get all involved. And I think that there's something to be said for that. But at the same time, if people don't feel comfortable with it, and you can't establish trust, they're not going to get involved in the crypto space. And we don't have a customer base for our customers in the case of those busting compliance that work with these exchanges. And it's about creating a safe environment where they feel comfortable. People feel comfortable with banks because they're FDIC insured. We can have a separate debate about that if we wanted to. But there is a degree of comfort knowing that their deposits are going to be there with crypto and your scams, and people like Chris talk about this, and rightfully so. But we really have to come along or further along than we were. But we need to keep going along in that direction and build that trust so that the average consumer, not us nerds, you put it so well, Amber, not us nerds are just interested, that the average person and all the way down to mine, grandma, are comfortable with crypto.
I was thinking like what we do for our clients is we lend our trust to them because regulators here and banks hear crypto and then they're like, no. And they go, oh, you're working with Amber. Okay, you know her. She worked at a bank. She knows how to build framework. She won't lie. She'll tell us the truth. So that matters. So, I find myself in a unique position where I'm kind of going out on the fringe from some of my, colleagues who are still at banks and saying, yeah, if you have the data, you have the framework, and you have good intentions, and you're willing to continue to be honest, and you could build a scalable business. And it's exciting to see that. And you kind of have to have trust with your clients too, because you are putting your name out there. And that's what it takes today. And it's just the reality of the world that we're in. It's still a very gated industry. So, helping these exchanges getting MTLs, it's very declining to see what the different states do. They're like, they block you. They'll say, hey, I don't like crypto. Sorry, I don't trust you. And then you just kind of go toe to toe and say, but what about this? But what about this? And you're persistent. And you're just like transparent, consistent. And you don't leave, and you answer smartly, and you continue the conversation, and eventually they have to give up and give you the lessons.
And I've also seen Amber like on a Zoom call talking to these regulators, and you just want to get the popcorn out. You're like, wait, what about this? It's not just a straightforward like, hello, thank you for your checklist. We have given you these PDFs, and everyone says thumbs up, like this is great. You've showed me that there's the official suggested checklist, then there's the secret checklist, then there's how are they feeling today checklist.
There's special rules for crypto.
I will add, though, that when I first got into crypto, there was no crypto. It was Bitcoin. That was it, right? Now, the thing that they used to say in Bitcoin is that it's trustless, okay? And that's a really big difference between having trust, which is like having faith in the institution that we're parking your assets. Are they still going to be liquid in a year? do they really have the assets that I have? Because as soon as you deposit it with them, cross your fingers, all right? As they say, not your keys, not your coins. So to play devil's advocate, even though I work in the compliance space and I've had many conversations with regulators, there is an aspect to this where it's going to be more of like opt in, opt out. Do you want your money at the bank, or do you want your money at this regulated financial institution, or do you want to keep it under your digital mattress? Do you want to have full control? That's the society where we're headed. And that's exciting. Like, having choices is exciting. So I'm wearing my Bitcoin Rebel pin for a reason, right? This is the new digital Wild West that we're in, and it's not slowing down.
Chris, I appreciate the comment. I agree with you. The irony when we talk to legislators is they sort of look at it and they say, well, where's the customer support? What if someone gets locked out of their account? Or we have these questions about non-custodial types of accounts or relationships. And it turns out that from the legislator's perspective, at least, it sounds like they would rather you trust a stranger than trust yourself, because there's no backstop there. And getting back to my education point, we have to close that gap. So while I agree with you, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily translate to different circles that we run in, whether that's dealing with the regulator in the case of Amber, or we're dealing with our state legislatures as I do.
That's my choice. Skip.
Here.
So I think that brings us to something I wanted to ask all of you, and I talked to these guys backstage earlier today. So we saw, Chris, like the uncertain path that a victim might be going through if they find that, their crypto has been stolen. So when you have a company that has a money transmitter license, right, or, if they're using DeFi, let's say that you have a client and they come up to you and they're like, oh, hey, someone called us, they're scammed. What do we do about that? What's the escalation path? And I'm aware of the fact that maybe there's not an official escalation path, but where you guys are at, what would you like to see?
That's a great question. Mostly because I kind of described the escalation path. There really isn't one. It's sorry you sent it out, but Bitcoin's a one-way transaction. There's nothing we can do. And they have it in their terms of service, right? Like, if you send it, you sent it. There's nothing we can do. So, and there's nothing in the laws written right now or proposed bills that say that you have to do X, Y, or Z for your customers, right? There really isn't any, which is why I started the nonprofit. Because if I can at least position it in a way that, like, look, if you're not doing anything that's going to be for customers, do you want them to come back to you, or do you want to be part of a class action suit later where all these victims come and say, you didn't do anything, I got scammed again? I don't know if they have a leg to stand on in that regard. But that's why there needs to be public-private partnerships, right? There needs to be a place where the victims can go, that they can, again, part of it is trust, right? Because they thought they trusted the person they were talking to on the WhatsApp channel that told them where to invest. They thought they were talking to someone they could trust when they were talking to a recovery company. Everybody, that's the one good thing that I do see it help people still, is there's a lot of good-hearted, trusting people still out there. Unfortunately, a lot of groups being taken advantage of. So what is a crypto financial institution who's licensed going to do? What do the banks do now? That's what I would say, because that's what's going to happen to the victims. The exact same thing is going to happen because they're going to be shoved into the same lane. They're like, well, you're basically a financial institution now, so you have to have the rules, follow the same rules that the banks do. So there's escalation processes. There's things called SARs, suspicious activity reports the financial institutions have to submit. And that's usually where you think something's suspicious and you go, I did some research on this guy's account where he's sending his crypto, and it looks like he's sending it to places that US persons can't have accounts. That's a red flag. So we're gonna talk to this customer. And then you start talking to that customer, and it turns out they are getting scammed. But the money's already gone. All you can do is then report that to law enforcement and hope that law enforcement has enough data that they can put it together in other cases that they work, so that when they do have these $115 million, $255 million busts, that there's a place that victims can actually The data's been turned in. They show a connection to that scam or that scam organization, which is why I'm working on legislation right now for a victim fund and victim restoration package, so that it makes it easier. So there's a place for victims to go so they can actually get their money back if it's possible. But the realistic expectations need to be set, because it takes 3 to 5 years for these busts to happen, right? And so people think, well, can you just give me my money back now? Because if you give me my money back now, then I don't have to tell my spouse. I can just put the money back in the account. But what they don't realize is that the damage has already been done. Like, you broke that trust already. You got to have those hard conversations. You should focus on not just recovering crypto, which is why I put the word recovery in the name of the foundation, is because it's about recovering your life too. You need to put your life back together. It's not just about money.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, and it seems we're talking a lot about the reactive side of things, whereas maybe my perspective is a little different. In consulting, working with companies that are either preparing to go to market or are shoring up their compliance defenses, and the best defense is a good offense, right? Putting strong consumer protection key pieces in place, disclosures, scam warnings, doing everything we can. As Chris mentioned, he's right. A lot of people are just going to click through, or they're going to acknowledge, something later on that they're going to go back and say, well, I didn't mean to send this. Well, actually, you checked off all these things, and one of the indicators you checked off was the typology that you actually fell for. And that's a difficult conversation to have. And it's difficult when your consumer protection policy looks like a risk section of a 10K in an SEC. It's like, if meteor hits, we may not be able to get you your money with something like that. Or what if Bitcoin's not around next year or something like that? But I think there are ways to educate consumers, and some of the exchanges, I'll use Coinbase as a great example. They incentivize their customers through educational videos and tutorials, and reward them for learning more about cryptocurrency, learning more about Bitcoin and stable coins, and with the hope that if we can have an educated consumer base, that they won't fall for, no guarantees, but they'll be less likely to fall for a lot of the scams that Chris had talked about.
I think from my perspective, like, I see it where I'm helping a lot of fintechs build products. So I think we're going to see a lot of new products to try to build, right? Because there's going to be a market for it. Also, the reputation. I think companies that want to be recognized as profitable or trusted themselves, they're going to need to show consumers and users that they're not going to let them get ripped off and do nothing. But I do think, like, all of us in this new world need to be aware, but organizations like yours, because I think that's the reality we live in. Like, we're all have been impacted. I personally lost a friend to suicide over her losing her life savings. She didn't want to tell her daughter, and she found out about it from the scammer after she passed. And yeah, I think we all have to think about, like, it's not if, it's when. It's going to be somebody close to us that's impacted. So we have to start thinking about it. And it's not a common topic of discussion that somebody's not, and it happens in the banks today with wires all the time. The money's gone. Big clients will say, oh my gosh, $5 million's gone. You can't take it back. Oh, it's similar but different. It's going to be, a different reality with the AI agents. Like, they can impersonate your voice. You get those scam calls you're afraid to answer with your voice. They can capture your voice and then mimic you, and then, call your dad and say, we have your son or daughter, pay us this ransom, and they play the voice that sounds just like your kid. You're going to want to send the money. So I think whether it's crypto or, it's more the AI risk, I think, that's coming into play here. And maybe the crypto companies will be more concerned because they know, at least some of the clients I'm working with, they want to be seen as trust. They want to get licenses. I've seen some of the regulators try their best. They don't have budgets. They'll say, can you open an 800 number? Like, we'll meet the checklist. We'll submit the application. I'll say, last thing, open up a 1-800 number. And then my client will say, but we don't do phone. We 24-hour chatbot, and regulators like, I don't care, open a landline, and then they do. Maybe that helps somebody, but I think if you need more organizations, like, maybe it would be wise for every crypto company to have their own not-profit to help.
one thing I'll add to that is, having worked in traditional banks before getting crypto, traditional banks don't want to talk about fraud, but the crypto platforms do, and they want to make a change and they want to make a difference. So SB 1208, which is in the legislature right now, will give law enforcement the ability to freeze digital assets in response to a scam, up to and including a 10 business day freeze in response to a letter that allows law enforcement the time to go get a warrant. And when the staffers heard that we, CBAT, wanted to talk about it, we sat down and we said, well, first of all, we want to let you know that we're in favor of this. We just want to make sure that definitely, and the staffer softly goes, oh, we knew you guys would be in favor of this. You guys trip all over yourselves to show how you cooperate with law enforcement. And it was at that moment, it's like, wow, you don't really see us as the adversary we used to. And we had this conversation, we're like, yeah, we knew you'd be on board. Now, they said they had to convince their legislative colleagues that crypto wasn't going to come down here and try to stop this legislation. But as soon as we get on there, on the call, it's like, yeah, we knew you were in the same team. And it was just a really good feeling. And then I think of my days in NAHI, like, they just don't want to talk about fraud. Like, it's not even
I
that.
was gonna say, do you trust the bank or the crypto companies?
We got.
Right? Probably the crypto companies in a way, because they're under the microscope.
Well, and from a law enforcement perspective, what I'm seeing, at least globally, is that, because I also work with a lot of not only victims, but I do a divorce expert witness cases, right? And when we subpoena foreign exchanges, they're actually cooperative, even though they don't necessarily need to be because they're in a different jurisdiction. And the reason is because, well, one, the U.S. has a long arm, and they've actually put foreign crypto exchanges under their purview. And in doing so, it's really kind of brought together the industry to cooperate with each other. So they know that one, crypto moves fast, and two, they have the ability to stop things. So they know that if they actually take a stance, they can help prevent bad things from happening further than they already have. So I would say that they are very cooperative for the most part. There's always going to be those bad actors, but for the most part, globally, crypto exchanges are actually cooperative.
So if we're talking about companies that are getting licensed now, right? Amber, you and I have talked about how there's a difference between being exam ready and then actually, having like a policy on paper versus having something that actually happens in the day to day. So what are some things you guys think would help companies, maybe these fintechs that are starting to get their licensure, not just be exam ready, but actually prevent harm in the real world?
Well, I look like Eva. She knows about this topic too much about it. I think it's not just theoretical, right? And that there's no longer a brick and mortar. You can't lock things behind a cabinet. Have it like a server that it's all in the cloud. In my mind, I think having the tech, having the data, having real controls and hard stops, you can't fake that, and you have to get the certifications. There are scammers and creative people cutting corners around the cybersecurity certification. So I think, I was reminded today, Joe, about the other states aren't doing that. Cybersecurity is critical. If somebody comes to me and wants my help and they don't have that first, I'm like, you need to do that first. Do that first, because if you have that, you have nothing. So I think the IT controls and around how you're getting data, how you're storing it, you need to make sure they're real. And I think first and foremost, that's what you need to do if you're going to engage in this industry in any way.
I would agree. I also think the AI stuff is a big component of it. I mean, for us compliance and crypto industry folks, the days of do all learn together, because I know you said Tuesday when you got on stage. So I was like, oh shit, what day is it? Typical compliance for the non-ever acting way. Oh, I thought it was Wednesday. Oh my God, did I miss a day? What happened? But whether it was this morning or yesterday, Coinbase announced they're laying off 14% of their staff. And they don't have a phone number that I can call, and they're a public company. They have one of the worst customer support systems I don't know how they were allowed to go public without some sort of customer support. But the point being is AI is going to take jobs. But from a compliance perspective, there still needs to be the man in the middle, right? The stop points have to,
Person in the middle.
yeah, the person in the middle, the human in the middle, right? So because you do, like, even when the AI gets good, there should still be somebody responsible for ultimately saying, okay, yes, let that through, or don't let that through. So that when somebody has to answer just something, you don't go, it was the chatbot.
I think it's so interesting because people think AI is going to replace all the jobs. The person in the middle is going to be so much more important than ever now, because you're going to need testers, validators, somebody to confirm and monitor that's going to be to think about what's tomorrow going to look like. Is there going to be a set of people that won't work because AI, and then now there's going to be like workers.
You're gonna have agent orchestrators, right? So one person's gonna manage like 5 different agents, right? And their agents gonna have sub-agents that are doing the tasks. So you're just gonna be asking an individual to do about 4 times the work of what a single individual is doing now. And that's all it's gonna be. It's not like there's gonna be less work.
We'll see different.
Will just be less people doing, right? With better tools. But again, if you don't have good people working the tools or making those calls in the middle,
Yeah,
you're running up to the same problems that we're running into today. But again, it's still a human problem.
we've been working in machine learning and technology for like over 2 decades, right? Many of us nerds, compliance nerds, but what about everybody else who hasn't been working with AI or tech? And that is interesting. Like, what's going to happen next year? What is it going to look like for people who are just learning? And I think that's why I wanted to start having these conversations, because I think, we need everyone, because of the things that the victims, I think we need to bring it to the table, to the creatives, the entrepreneurs, everyone else who are impacted. Like, every business is going to accept crypto, and you need to use AI to stay relevant. So we need to work together, I think, to make it safe for our kids.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's how you work with the AI. It's not that the AI is going to replace you. So to be successful, it's how much you know and how well you can work with AI. So as a child of the 80s, we were told the robots were going to take our jobs at what point, right? Maybe that was sort of a relic of the manufacturing days gone by, but there always seems to be a new technology that's going to take away jobs, and it never seems to come to fruition. But I think there's always going to be a human in the loop, and whether that's by design, by necessity, for safety concerns, for consumer protection concerns, or it may just be mandated. The case of our legislature in California, there are a lot of bills that would do just that. Fine, you want to have AI, but we want to see your models. We want to have this particular specific control of a human in the loop at this particular stage. Show your work, those types of expectations.
That's why red2human.com exists. So yes, in this side. It's because the AI can't do everything. It can't go to the grocery store. It can't go to the hardware store and physically get the lumber and build the deck, right? But it knows that it can hire people to do that. And there's literally a website called Rent2Human, and over 500,000 people have signed up. So maybe the AI is going to be giving people jobs.
And on that note, I think we're going to wrap it out here. So thank you guys so much for a really awesome discussion. And we're